Marty Patriquin, is on the line right now. I wrote an article in The Logic about Airbnb and how governments, both municipal and provincial, and their crackdown, if you will, on Airbnbs after that tragic fire in Old Montreal a year ago has basically achieved very little. And it's interesting, Marty, hang on a sec, because I'm being told, Dawn, you mentioned that the newest person to throw her name into the ring who wants to head Projet Montréal, so she's the mayor of the Villeray Parc-Ex.
Saint-Michel, yeah.
What is she saying she'll do?
So Laurence Lavigne-Lalonde is promising in her, if elected mayor and head of Projet Montréal before that, obviously, to ban Airbnb rentals in the first 100 days of being mayor.
Not just in her borough. She's talking citywide, do we know?
Yeah, in Montreal until the housing crisis is resolved.
Okay, thank you, Don.
Cheers.
So, Marty, what do you think of that? Someone running for mayor who wants to ban Airbnb.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in municipal governments that want to do that, and I'm saying that in Montreal and beyond. I mean, I think the most famous case that everybody will know is Manhattan in New York. Like, it is next to impossible to get an Airbnb anywhere on the island of Manhattan, and that's by design. It's been banned on the island, and for the very reasons that Madame Laurence Lavigne is saying right there, is that it exacerbates the housing crisis in the areas where those are set up.
By the way, I should mention, you're talking about where it's banned, like in Manhattan. I remember when that was the story, and I did a quick check just before we came on. So Barcelona, Penang, Malaysia, and Palma de Mallorca in Spain have all banned short-term rentals, so Airbnbs, in apartment buildings. They apparently let them happen in houses or villas, but you can no longer rent an apartment on Airbnb in any of those locales. But let's talk about your piece specifically, right? So we know tragic fire, 7 people die in Old Montreal. The government doesn't waste time, comes out and says, we're going to crack down on this. There are too many illegal rentals on Airbnb. We know it. We're going to do something. What'd they do, Marty?
I mean, in the case of the provincial government, they came out with a law, that Law 25, that was meant to crack down on a lot of these places. And, it has a certain amount of teeth. There's, on paper anyway, talk about, having huge fines for the digital operators or the digital platforms that host these things, that kind of thing. But the problem has been in enforcement. So since that fire, nearly 2 years ago, there has been all of 2 fines for, I think, a total of $25,000 against short-term rental platforms for hosting effectively illegal short-term rentals. And the issue for me isn't so much the amount. It's very difficult to say take an Airbnb and give Airbnb a fine. Airbnb is worth millions and millions of dollars. The fine doesn't matter much. It's the fact that there's only been 2. It just goes to show that the system doesn't really work, and it's as plain as day. You can go on the site and you can find, it's fairly easy to find places that don't necessarily conform, but are there. And the law has created all sorts of little loopholes through which people can easily get through. Not quite as easily as it was before, still relatively easy, and it's worth it fundamentally for someone who owns an apartment building. If you're charging $1,600 a month, say, for a two bedroom, you can charge exponentially more if you're doing short-term rental. So risking it for them is worth it. And the fact is that it is easy to do so to this day on these platforms.
So my question is, with respect to those 2 fines that were handed out, you mentioned $25,000. Those are fines that were handed out to Airbnb. I was under the impression, obviously I'm wrong, that if you are one of those people who decides to list your place on Airbnb and you do get a listing up and then you're found to have contravened the law, Are you not subject to a fine?
You are. And to be clear, I don't know if those fines went to Airbnb, just so you know.
Okay.
They said platforms, and there's lots of platforms. There's Vrbo, Booking.com,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. So the Revenue Quebec didn't specify which ones to me. Anyway, yes, you're right. If you can get a fine, but that's at the municipal level. If you're an individual, so what Montreal has is there's 3 boroughs where Airbnb is allowed, or where the primary ones were. It's Sud-Ouest, Plateau de Montréal, and Ville-Marie. Those 3 boroughs have a total of 3 dedicated inspectors who are able to go around and inspect these places. And if you don't conform, you can get a fine of up to, I think it's $4,000. But the fact is that it's 3 inspectors covering a huge amount of territory. I tell anybody to go online and look at the number of listings in those areas and consider the amount that these people have to police. It's absurd. So yes, there is a risk of a fine, but again, my impression anyway, just given the amount that these listings have rebounded relatively over the last couple of years since the fire, that people that get these fines, it's essentially a cost of doing business.
Right. Now, if I'm reading this right, according to data from Inside Airbnb, which analyzes rental activity, right, it shows more than almost half, 47% of the short-term rentals on Airbnb in Montreal remain unregistered. I thought the whole idea was you could only get on if you were registered.
You can get. I mean, there are ways to get around it.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah, there's ways to get around it, and look. If you talk to Airbnb, as I did, Airbnb said, look, that data is false. It's not true. And then you ask them for actual data, and then they ignore you. That's par for the course for Airbnb. So Airbnb disputes the veracity of that 47%, but has not provided data to sort of, to back up their argument. But yes, again, it's very, very easy to list. The other interesting thing is, a vast majority of the people that list are multiple unit owners. So it just goes to show that the whole idea, the whole ethos of Airbnb started off as, I have space in my house, I'm going to rent it out. That is no longer the case. This is a business making platform, and I'm not even criticizing that. I'm just saying it is completely different business model, Airbnb and Vrbo, et cetera, than when the whole idea came about however long ago, 15, 20 years ago.
I will point out, it's sort of timely that we're doing this today, because yesterday, Quebec launched its public registry, which we've been talking about for a while now, which is supposed to allow people to actually check whether a short-term rental is registered with the province or not, so you know if it's legal or not. And I laughed when I saw this, because I said, how many people are actually going to go to that length to check whether it is or it isn't? You see it, you want to rent it, bang, 100%. You're done.
That's 100%. And Airbnb is a huge, well-known name. And if I go on there and I'm going to rent something, it's like, it's blue chip. So I already assume that it's legitimate. So why would I go and check? I'm sure some people will, of course, but I would venture to say the vast majority of people won't.
So with respect to this and the story, when I just mentioned about the mayor who's running, or someone who wants to run rather for mayor, wanting to ban Airbnb entirely, do you support that idea? Is that the right way to go about this, do you think?
I don't know. Certainly it has worked in cities that have had far more listings and far more demand than Montreal has. And New York's a prime example. Now, will that necessarily work in Montreal? And again, it comes down to being able to enforce this and then having the resources to enforce it. You can make all the laws in the world, but if it's so easy to circumvent, then it doesn't really make much difference. The other issue, and this is sort of one of the things I brought up in the column, and this is something we've talked about before, is New York City has a hell of a lot more powers municipally than Montreal does. One of the problems with enforcement in Montreal is that they often have to kick it up to the provincial government because they don't have the ability to give out fines, which is the example I was giving earlier. New York has that, Montreal doesn't. So Montreal has a certain number of challenges that other cities don't have in putting these rules into place.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other cities, as I said, where it says, you can rent a place if you have a home, i.e. a house, but not an apartment. That seems like a pretty black and white solution, at least as far as housing is concerned, when there isn't enough available housing here.
Yeah, and remember, Airbnb started off with this, and I've actually done this before. I've gone places. The last time I did it was in Hamilton about a year ago. You go and someone has a room in their house, and you literally rent that room.
Right.
And it's nice. It's crazy cheap, and that was what it was originally designed for. So the application of that particular piece of the law, or putting a law in place that reflects that, kind of makes sense, is because that's what Airbnb has always sold it itself as. That is not what Airbnb has become. It's become something that's essentially a way to get a nice hotel room without having to pay hotel rates.
I wonder if we can ever get that genie back in the bottle. It's sounding like perhaps
probably
at least
not. I don't think so. Yeah. To be honest,
Marty, thank you so much. Yeah,
it's a lot like Uber. it's like Uber. Like, you're never going to put Uber back in the bottle, right? It's a similar kind of thing.
Fair enough. Marty Patriquin, Writing in the Logic, if you want to check it out. Marty, thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.